In this video I'm going to talk about the more mental and emotional and somewhat physiological causes for back pain. So in the last video we looked at what happens mechanically, why certain joints end up in a certain position, how that can create overuse in one area, lack of use in another area. And again, as we know, back pain is very rarely purely a structural thing. It usually has mental, emotional, psychological, social factors to it as well. And again, that leads us back to the diaphragm. The diaphragm relates to our breathing and our ability to breathe efficiently and comfortably by creating a contraction, shortening of the diaphragm here, and a lengthening of the diaphragm as we exhale. Our ability to do that literally and directly influences our hormones, it influences our anxiety levels, or can be influenced by the anxiety levels. It's a chicken egg kind of situation. It depends what's going on at the individual level. And so what we tend to see, again, so in the last video we talked about things structurally. What I tend to see is people are stuck in this extension here, the rib cage, ribs are flared, and that corresponds to a very tightened, almost hypertonic diaphragm that's not willing to relax, and they're stuck in this position. And so that's a structural view of things. But where does that come from? What caused that to begin with? And that's when we get into the mental, emotional, lifestyle stuff. So when we're stressed or when we're anxious or grief-stricken, whatever it is, we tend to breathe very shallowly. We tend to breathe into our upper chest, more so with our superficial muscles and the smaller neck muscles, rather than using what's down here to create that lengthening and that expansion in 3 dimensions, as down and in every direction. We tend to breathe up here and keep our bellies immobile. And you see this in certain personality types. You see this in people's posture. The really classic example is a rugby player, say a prop, and they're very much here, and they're all go, and they're type A personality typically, and then you'll see the opposite in other people who are very withdrawn from the world, and they're kind of here and they're protecting themselves from the world. They're just opposite ends of the spectrum. Both of those people could have back pain, or they might not have back pain. It all depends. But that again relates back to our diaphragm and how our diaphragm directly influences our mood, our hormones, our anxiety levels, all that sort of thing. So if you think about when you have a fright or some sort of shock or some sort of bad news, you might gasp, and when that happens, you're not going, you're going, again, typically there are all sorts of instances, you know, depending on the individual, but the natural reflex is one of kind of fright, and the movement comes in this upper chest area, and this kind of flaring of the ribs, and that can almost become ingrained. And if sort of over time people experience so many things, they have traumas, they have challenges, they have stress from all sorts of reasons, and that happens slowly over time, and it's only at a very late stage that we get pain and we get problems, and the pain is usually a last ditch attempt to get you to do something about what's been going on, and it's a signal that you can't really ignore. And the challenge is that we tend to be very structurally minded. We think, well, I've got a pain here, therefore I need this area here to be mashed and remolded, or you know, it needs surgery or whatever it is. But maybe it's the grief, the anxiety, the stress because of something you went through, or just a series of things over time that your body never processed or never fully recovered from. Now you can get into that in a lot of detail. Some people don't want to. Sometimes you may need to, but you need to talk to your clinician about that. But the simplest thing we can do is begin to restore that ability of the diaphragm to contract smoothly, which goes from a dome position, a resting position, contract smoothly into a sort of flattened position, and lengthen fully as we exhale and create a really accentuated dome position as the lungs empty and draw the diaphragm up and we draw the belly button in. So the simplest thing we can do for back pain, and pretty much any pain that tends to be driven by stress. So how would you know if it's more driven by stress? Think about it this way: do you have good days and bad days? Do you wake up in the morning and maybe it's a bit sore, but once you get moving, it eases up? Once you get your breakfast, once you do something, or once your mind is off the issue. Is your pain different when you're on holidays? I see that a lot. People, you ask them about their pain, and they go on holidays and the pain's gone, or it's much better. It's less severe. And so what does that say to us? It doesn't suggest that it's very much a structural thing, because if there's physical damage, that physical damage will get better, but it doesn't get better like that and get worse and better and back. It's not like an on and off switch. But our stress levels are more like an on and off switch. Like we can, I think of it more like a dimmer switch. We can fade in or fade out the stress and bring in what we call our rest and digest state. And breathing is how we do that. So I harp on about breathing all the time, because literally it's the first thing you need to conquer, I believe, in your fight against some sort of chronic pain. And it has so many knock-on benefits. So that's going to be what we're going to be doing for this. You want to focus on contracting the diaphragm, lengthening the diaphragm, and we're going to do that in our COGs breathing and our diaphragmatic breathing.